Christmas is in 10 days. You look thrilled. So it's your girls' first Christmas.
Yes, it is their first Christmas, and I am proud to admit that everything is ready and has been since like last week.
I expected as much. What was your first Christmas that you remember, or the first gift you got from Santa that you remember?
The very first gift I remember getting from Santa was I was maybe 3 or 4 years old, and it was a pretty epic year for gifts. I was a major Barbie kid. I loved Barbies. I had a ton of them. And that was the year I got Dance and Twirl Barbie and used it to terrorize the dog. And I also got a My Size Barbie, which was very exciting. That was also the same year I got the Barbie Malibu Beach House.
Well,
So it was a really good Christmas. I must have been real good that year. And I think that was also the year my brother got his first Nintendo PlayStation or something like that. So Santa wanted to make sure that he had the same budget for both children.
Sure.
So one of us got more stuff.
That seems fair. I think probably not my first Christmas that I remember. I can remember some details from different Christmases before this, but the first Christmas that was like a really big deal after my parents had gotten divorced, and so my mom was like single and working a bunch of different jobs, and was like kept saying that she was worried about making enough money to do Christmas, but she, with the help of my uncle, got me and my brother each a Power Wheels. Do you remember the Power Wheels?
Yeah, I do remember the Power Wheels.
This would have been the year before. I would have been turned 5 the day before Christmas, because it was when I was in kindergarten. So my brother would have been 3 or so, and he got a 4-wheeler Power Wheels, and I got the white and pink Barbie Jeep Power Wheels.
Ooh.
And then we drove them over to my uncle's house because my mom and him made it a combination present from the two of them.
Oh, fun.
And she walked alongside us while we drove it over to my uncle's house through the snow. So that was a very memorable for me.
That's really fun. I will never be getting my children Power Wheels because I have seen too many videos of siblings running each other over.
Hey, if you aren't run over by a Power Wheels before the time you're 7 years old, you can't build character. That's science.
I know, right? God.
Welcome to This Is Lit, a podcast where we drink and talk about our favorite books. I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Casey.
So raise a glass and let's get started.
Okay, Liz, what are you drinking today?
I am being boring because I am still kind of recovering from a mystery illness that makes me want to not keep anything down. So I'm just having hot cocoa right now.
Mm-hmm.
What are you drinking? It looks like a nice hefty serving of Lambrusco.
Well, see, I wanted to drink something seasonal, but I didn't want to heat up mulled wine because I made mulled wine the other week and I still have some left. So I figured that if I just drink red wine straight out of a mug, it's basically the same thing.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right. So today we are discussing JRR Tolkien's Letters from Father Christmas. It is it's not a novel. It is a collection of letters that Tolkien wrote to his children as throughout the years, starting in 1920 and ending in, I think, 1943.
Yeah, because he had 4 children. The 3 oldest were boys who sadly have all passed away. And the youngest, Priscilla, is still alive to this day.
Mm-hmm. And this looks like it was edited by Bailey Tolkien. So
yes.
I think that might be Priscilla's child.
Yes, I think so. I didn't do a lot of digging into the Tolkien family tree because I figured they probably like some modicum of privacy.
Yeah, Tolkien himself did not publish these. This was very much the brainchild of his children and his grandchildren, who wanted to share the letters he wrote, because they're not just letters. Like, I don't know, Liz, did you ever receive letters from Santa?
We got a letter from Santa every Christmas morning, and then when we would go to my grandparents for Christmas dinner, Santa would always leave a poem on their front door.
Mm-hmm.
So we got letters and poems from Santa. Did you ever get letters from Santa?
In my house, Santa would usually write thank you on the paper towel that was with the cookies and the milk. And sometimes if we were really lucky, one of the reindeer would leave a footprint on there too.
Yes, this is your friendly reminder that if you leave out treats for Santa, please leave treats for the poor little reindeer. They work hard.
Yeah, we always left carrots. But the most
we left oats
was just just like a little thank you for the milk and cookies, Santa, or S-Claus or whatever. It was never anything elaborate. Whereas Tolkien's letters to his children are pages long. They're written on special paper. He sends drawings with them. And possibly my favorite aspect of it is he adopts a special shaky handwriting.
Yes, he changes his handwriting.
In the very first, as he says in the very first, or the very second letter here, that he is 1927 years old. And so his handwriting is very shaky, which is like he builds an entire world around.
He does. He builds this entire world, entire characters, because we are introduced to the North Polar Bear, who is his assistant, but also an agent of chaos in the North Pole. And then there's also Cave Bear. And then there's, I think it's Ilbereth, who is the head elf in charge with the gnomes. And then there's the goblins that live in the caves. And he really builds up this whole world of the North Pole. And just like, as a parent, these letters are so sweet.
They're very cute. It's, and he sends drawings with them as well. Comments on the polar bear's antics, and kind of explains to the children what's been going on in the last year since they last spoke to him. And I can imagine that looking at these, that I would personally feel like invested, like I would be starting to look forward to the letters as the years came on.
There's a goblin language that he invents. There's also an entire writing system and language of the polar bears that North Polar Bear teaches the children. North Polar Bear has like nephew cubs that come see him.
Would it really be a Tolkien story if he didn't create an entire elaborate language for no reason?
No.
And put it in there.
That's just not his style.
But as we said, the first letter came in 1920, and the last letter was to
John, daughter, I believe is his oldest.
To his oldest son, John. And the last letter came to his daughter, Priscilla, in 1943. And throughout the time, he comments, even like as time goes on, I know that, John is not writing to me anymore. I don't think he's gotten too old, things like that, which you kind of see you see that kinship with Lewis and the talking about, they kind of bemoan their children growing up together. Which I
think any parent, if you do a good job, you bemoan your children growing up. Like I have to change out the car seats for my girls because they're too big for them, and it's a bittersweet moment.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're not tiny babies anymore. Now they're moderate sized babies.
Yeah.
And like reading this book, especially with like the first letter, I just got so excited with the first letter because I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to do this soon. And like the last letter to Priscilla just was such a bittersweet moment for me because it's like all the kids have grown up. And I mean, yes, this is my girl's first Christmas, but there will be that last letter to Santa Claus.
Right.
And that's something I can't bear thinking about right now.
Yeah. It's very cute. And it's also really interesting from a couple of different perspectives. The first thing that like really hit me about it is that like it really humanized Tolkien for me, because like I've always been a fan of Tolkien's works. There's been lots said about him in literary circles and educational circles. And because he's essentially the like grandfather of the fantasy genre as a whole, he's become something of a mythologic figure himself. And it's really easy to kind of forget that there was a man with a wife and kids and like regular day-to-day duties behind that. And like just seeing him like talk to his kids and come up with these stories for him was very much kind of one of those reminders that he was just a normal guy like the rest of us, that was just kind of trying to find a way to make life a little bit more special for his kids.
It's very clear in these letters that he deeply loves his children. And that's just something you want to see. And I know we've talked about him on several episodes past because we've done The Hobbit and The Fellowship. And I actually was reading an article not too long ago about how we cannot blame the people who kind of started a genre for the sins of all the people who have copied the genre. They mentioned Tolkien briefly, but I think their main example, since so many people feel very strongly about Tolkien, was the Hunger Games, about the Suzanne Collins. They used the Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins about the young adult dystopian literature and how like that genre is heavily influenced by, you know, a young woman becoming the face of the rebellion and being an adult and showing everybody how to do it and being stuck in this love triangle. And it's like, if you actually read the Hunger Games, Katniss has very little to do with being the face of the rebellion. People just use her as propaganda and she doesn't really know if she likes it. And there is no love triangle for her. She's like, I'm just interested in survival. Thank you very much.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's definitely a case of authors being like works existing beyond their authors. Like death of the author is a real thing. And like, you can't necessarily quote unquote blame an author for bad things written in the genre that they invented, but like you can credit an author. And like Tolkien, obviously we've talked again about this before, Tolkien was huge for the fantasy genre as a whole. And these are kind of fantastical in nature too. You see a lot of the same kind of themes of just like very lighthearted, like the characters having archetypes. Like the polar bear has this very familiar archetype that we've seen, you know, in these kind of silly, frivolous characters, like even Pip and Took springs to mind.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like in one of the first letters, North Polar Bear climbed up to the top of the North Pole and then fell through Santa's roof. And so then Father Christmas had to move.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm so sorry, but it was funny.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because I read this at about the same time that there was somebody going viral on Twitter. I actually shared this with Liz this weekend. A woman went viral on Twitter because she started leaving a little girl in her neighborhood had made a fairy garden during the pandemic, and she started leaving letters as a fairy called Sapphire. And like, it really is cool because like you could see this little girl's like creativity and imagination being sparked by this interaction that was just an adult who wanted to make life more fun and interesting for her. And I think you see the same thing here. Tolkien wants to encourage his children to like continue to have, you know, creative thinking and imaginative thoughts and like believe in Santa for as long as they can, because it makes life a little bit more special. So it's kind of one of those.
And you definitely see that, especially during the letters of like the late 1930s, because World War II is going on.
Right. Yeah.
And he talks about like, you can definitely tell that, you know, crazy stuff is happening in the world. And, you know, as Father Christmas, he's just trying to just impart some joy.
Yeah, the letters actually situation before World War II does.
Yeah, because World War II is 1945.
Right. Yep.
In Europe.
So like the last few.
And the last letter is 43.
But yeah, so you can see that there is kind of a desire to give his children something lighthearted and something to look forward to, even in like these really dreary and dark kind of times.
Yeah, because he talks about his messengers can't quite get to the post office because everybody has been displaced. And he's worried about, you know, his lists of children. And
Well,
things
even
like
some
that.
of the earlier letters talk about some of the different rations that happened after World War
Yeah.
I. And he tells his children, I hope you don't mind that you're not each getting an individual present this year. All three of you are getting a present together because I decided to give some of your other presents to children who are less fortunate, which is like a really interesting way to teach children about like charity and generosity while still like giving them that magical feeling of like Santa.
Yeah.
It's just a really interesting experiment in like engaging your kids in like creative thinking. Like I've read like think everybody's read like, you know, stories about people who are like, I'm going to tell my kid that Hogwarts is real and blah blah blah, and it's like, okay, that seems like a bad idea. But sending a kid a Harry Potter letter on their 11th birthday for fun, like that keeps the magic alive or whatever, you know.
There's a post going around the internet of, it's old now, but it was a young woman who started reading Harry Potter when it first came out, and she would write letters to Hermione and leave those letters on the piano, and she would come back and there would always be a letter from Hermione back, and she's like, I would just like to thank my mother for making that happen because it really made my childhood awesome.
Yeah. It's just, I think that even back in Tolkien's day, like it's not a new thing. People are so desperate either on their own to grow up, or society is so desperate for them to grow up so that they can use them for labor or whatever, that kids sometimes are pushed out of the magic of the holidays a little early. I personally am a Christmas Eve baby, and I was told when I was like, I think 5 years old that Santa wasn't real.
That's terrible.
So I never like I mean
that's awful.
My parents still wrote the letters from Santa, you know. My mom still wrote the letters from Santa. Both sides of my family still like tagged labels like Santa, and we're like, this is a fun thing we're gonna do. But it was kind of, I lost that kind of wide-eyed wonder about the whole season. And I think it's very special because of that, like reading these and seeing Tolkien's letters and imagining how his children might have reacted to getting a letter from Santa Claus every year, you know, waiting for the mail to come. And obviously it was also a different time, so they didn't have a lot of the entertainment that we have today. So like letters in general were a huge event, but to get letters from Father Christmas every year,
especially if there's poems with it or
drawings.
His drawings are beautiful.
Yeah, his drawings are beautiful. There's actually at least one of the drawings in here is a drawing that he reused.
Yeah.
For The Hobbit. I recognized it when I saw it.
Which one is it?
The drawing of the mountain.
Oh, yeah. It looks like the Lonely Mountain. I did also appreciate he did have a reference. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, you see that on older covers of The Hobbit as well.
That's on my cover, except it's green and blue instead of black and red. But the those were always really fun, and I did like in one of the letters that Father Christmas was like, I was going to send you hobbits, but I've heard you have enough.
Yeah.
So,
and it's just fun because again, it also spans 20 years. So like, you can see the journey that Tolkien himself is taking a little bit. You get it's not like an explicit look into somebody's life, but it's just a little peek into what this person is going through over the course of 2 decades.
And the continuity that he builds over 20 years is astonishing.
Right?
I'm like, how do you remember that you wrote this last year?
He has to have made himself copies of the letters. And I mean, Tolkien was always
or he would hold them for his kids.
Yeah, Tolkien's always been a very meticulous author. He's kind of known to be the kind who keeps like tedious notes about all of his characters and backstories. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did that as well for the
look at the Silmarillion.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there's the North Polar Bear, and a couple of times they meet the Man in the Moon, comes down to have tea.
Oh yeah, the Man in the Moon. If he keeps the goblins away from the North Pole, and if he gets drunk, that's a problem.
Yeah, so like I mean, it's really short, and it's again like there is a narrative structure to it. Just that there's continuity.
I mean, it's only like 110 pages. Some of them have pictures on them. Like it's a short book, but it was just It was nice. It was nice to have something that wasn't like a massive undertaking.
Yeah. And
right now.
It's lighthearted and wholesome, and it like.
And the thing I liked about it is I could be like, okay, I'm going to read 3 letters tonight because that's what my attention span can hold, and then I can switch to fan fiction.
Yeah. Reading is one of those things that has gotten harder, I feel like, with the pandemic. And so like something like this, it's like they're letters, they're each individual letters. It is something.
I'm like, I have the attention span for one shots and maybe something under 7 chapters.
That's valid. That's fair and valid.
I mean, that's what my attention span is right now.
I mean, you guys probably can tell, but this episode's probably also going to be quite a bit shorter than our other episodes, just because, again, like the narrative, like there is continuity in these, but there's not like a structure beginning, middle, and end. So there's really no way to discuss that. And really, most of it comes down to just being like the charm of it, which is.
It's like I can picture him sitting in his office with his little pipe and a pen and just grinning to himself at how much this is going to delight his children.
Mm-hmm.
And through a lot of these, actually, I thought of the Doctor Who Christmas specials that they always do every year.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm way behind on Doctor Who.
Me too.
So don't judge me. I mean, like, I think the last Doctor Who episode I watched was right after Clara left. So I'm way behind on Doctor Who.
I didn't even get to Clara leaving.
But the last Christmas special I saw was Clara and Capaldi. And it was her boyfriend, Danny Pink, had come back because they were trapped in some sort of weird alien dreamlike state thing. But it was really sweet because it was like every Christmas is last Christmas. So just enjoy Christmas.
Right.
It's just kind of like, it doesn't matter if it's perfect or not. Just enjoy the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like that sentiment is very apt right now. Because, I mean, you know, you introduced this to me the other night, but everybody needs to go listen to Judy Garland's I'll Be Home for Christmas, the sad version. Because Case introduced it to me the other night, and it was just perfection for this year.
Yeah.
If you're feeling the tad angsty at Christmas time, that's a good song.
Yeah. It has been a rough year, and I think that the Father Christmas letters have just shown me.
Yeah.
They kind of fall into that same category as a lot of my experiences of this year. It's just that you have to kind of find or create your own joy where you can when things are hard. I've, started trying to learn how to draw, and I've been playing around on TikTok, and just like, they're not things that are important or that I need to be able to do, but it's just like finding joy where I can find it whenever life is not as easy as I would like it to be.
Yeah. And, Christmas time it's a good time for joy, but it's also a good time for just renewed hope. And I think we all really kind of need that this year, and being reminded of that kind of childlike hope and wonder and astonishment and just plain old regular delight with the world. Because, I mean, when was the last time you were just super stoked about candy? I mean, when was the last time that happened?
About 2 weeks ago, I got a craving for Sour Patch Kids, and I bought a 5-pound bag of them. So,
ooh, because see, when I go to the Super Mega Lot store and I see the giant jumbo bag of Reese's peanut butter cup trees, I'm like, those are going in my cart. I'm gonna go home and eat half the bag.
I put marshmallows only from the Lucky Charms cereal. I put a 13-pound bag of only the marshmallows on my Amazon wish list in hopes that my stepmother will get it for me for Christmas. Yeah. Again, I'm not a very Christmassy person. Anyone who knows me will tell you that Christmas is not my favorite holiday, just because of my own personal baggage. And like anybody who's born in December at all, but especially like right on top of Christmas, kind of resents it just automatically. But like what Tolkien was feeling in these letters and what he was trying to do was find at least just one time during the year where there was a quiet moment. It was just family together, just enjoying themselves and kind of having their own private little adventure. And I think that's an admirable trait. And I think that's the sort of thing we should strive for in the holiday season, regardless of whether you celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah or something else. It's really all about, finding joy, even if you can't be physically together with people, finding joy by reaching out to other people, whether that's through a letter like Tolkien or a Zoom call, like
us,
like us right now.
I don't want to touch my camera. I'll smudge it.
But yeah, it's like I said, it was a really fun read. I enjoyed it. It made me feel, it warmed the cockles of my heart.
Yes. So, cockles is the $5 vocab word of the day.
Cockles is the $5 vocab word of the day.
Yes, it did. It just gives you a nice warm fuzzy feeling, like a cup of hot tea or warm cocoa.
So Liz, how many mugs of mulled wine would you give Letters from Father Christmas?
Mugs of mulled wine. Are we talking about like the giant travel mugs, or like
assume that the mugs are the same size as our usual bottles?
Those are big mugs.
Big mugs.
I don't know. I'd probably give it a 3.5 just because it was something I really needed. I mean, I think the reason I don't give it anything a lot higher than that is because it's not like a true story or the narrative is consistent. They're great little story snippets. And I'm really kind of I'm reminded a lot of just short story vignettes, which I love books like that because sometimes, again, I just don't have the attention for it. And with everything that's going on and the holiday season approaching, where just things are busier and messier and more important, I guess, than ever, to just try and make sure we get those moments of family magic. Just tonight, we've got the baby gate around the Christmas tree because the girls are like, "Oh, look, shaggy, must pull." But they'll sit there and we've got a little train around it, and they'll sit there and watch the train go around. And then Evelyn, my little Houdini, figured out if she stood on her play computer and reached through the top hole of the baby gate, she can reach some of the lower branches of the tree and start pulling the tinsel off. And I'm like, she shouldn't be doing that, but I will remember that the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's not a full novel. There's not a narrative arc to it. So I can't give it a super high rating, but 3.5. It's all about finding just the quiet moments of joy in a really busy season when things are hectic. And God knows things are awful out there right now. But Tolkien wrote some of these through World War II, which is one of the things we ever had experienced. It just kind of gave me the hope that things will get better eventually. And while they're not good, we can at least lean on each other in whatever ways we can. So I enjoyed it.
To quote Merle Highchurch, find the joy.
Find the joy.
That's the moral of the story. Find the joy.
Yes. So I enjoyed it. I strongly recommend it to you. Our next episode will be going up on the 30th. So it'll be after Christmas, but we're still kind of sticking Christmassy in the theme. We'll be reading C.S. Lewis's Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, giving you an Inklings month here at This Is Lit.
Yes, which apparently these two stopped speaking to each other for a while over the Father Christmas appearing in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Spoiler alert.
Lots to say about that, and that'll be a fun one. So keep your eyes out for that. And then in January, we'll get back to some of our normal reading, and we'll get to you those details a little bit later.
Yeah. And if you guys have any recommendations that you want to hear on the podcast, slide into our DMs and let us know.
Yeah. And again, we are available to you on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. litliteraturepodcast.com is our website. So you can follow us for all the information about what's going on with us.
Yes. And if you're feeling exceptionally generous, we do have a Patreon. Case is newly married this year. I have nearly 1-year-old twins. So we appreciate being able to do this with you and see you every 2 weeks. If we understand times are tough right now, especially at the holiday season. So if you could just tell somebody to listen to us, that would also be a huge help to us too.
Yeah. So thank you guys for listening. I know today was a little bit shorter, but we hope you have a very happy holiday season, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. For more information, visit us at litliteraturePodcast.com or check out our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. And remember, too much work and no vacation deserves at least a small libation.
Cheers!